Hello, everybody. Happy Veteran Day, and I wish you have a good weekend, the previous weekend, have a good time, and good days for the future weekdays. Okay, we are not talking about the power today in the course of LED 3665 leadership. We want to talk about one of the greatest and most influential materials in the course of leadership. So so-called power. What is power? At first, we should know what are we talking about. Let me share the PowerPoint with you. Yes, that's great. The chapter 5 of your class, and it is about power. What are learning objectives in this course? At first, we want to define power and its key role in leadership. We know that power has the key role in every aspect of human life, especially in some authoristic and power-based roles like leadership, management, and sometimes, for example, in marital roles or in parental roles, in social leadership roles. And second, understand the cross-cultural differences in the definition and use of power. What is the definition and what is the use of power? Cross-cultural differences is meant that indicates those differences which are not at the same in the which are the same in the different cultures. We cannot think any differences, and identify the individual and organizational sources of power available to leaders. For every power, you need some power sources. If you want to be a power holder, you need some power sources. Because of that, you should know, you should identify the individual sources of power and the organizational sources of power, because we are finally we are talking about the use of power in the organization, because your program is about the business and management. And describe the consequences of power for the leader, followers, and organizations. What are the consequences? What are the outcomes of the power for the leader as a power holder, for the followers, and for the organizations? Organizations, their place in the material and substantial place that power we can use, and understand the role of power in the leadership and effectiveness of teams. What are the effectiveness? What are the role of power in the leadership roles we are talking about? And identify the power sources available to top executives. We have different levels of management, different levels of leadership in an organization from top to toe. At the basic level, we have we have simple workers. At the top point, we have general manager and the board of directors. Between, we have several different levels for management and leadership, and executive, also executive people as the managers, as the leaders. Okay. And after that, explain the causes of power. After that, we want to explain the causes of power abuse and corruption and present ways to prevent them. Corruption in one of the basic and most popular, very current problems in using power. Power is one of the things that goes to corruption and goes to abuse very soon. It is very, very important to have some regulatory offices, regulatory organization, regulators, directors to control and have supervision to direct and redirect to the power holder to use in the healthy and the legal and socially acceptable ways. And finally, the last learning objective, our courses trace the changes in use of power, the development of empowerment, and explain the consequences for leadership. When we want to trace something, we should know the pathway that thing is going forward. When we want to trace the changes in use of power, we should know the pathway that the power users, power holders are using to gain, to use, to maintain their power. And the development of empowerment, our empowerment is one of the basic and also a little postmodern concepts in management and leadership. It indicates the empowerment of our co-workers, our colleagues, and explain the consequences for leadership. Okay. Some words are very near meaning together in the discussion about power. Some of them are misunderstood with other words. For example, three of the words are power, influence, and authority. Very near words together. Very, very near words together. That may have some misunderstood, misconcept together. We can use, for example, the definition of power instead of definition of authority, instead of definition of influence. In this course, for having some distinguish between these words, we offer you some clear definition of the words. At first, we have a definition of power. Power is the ability of one person to influence other and exercise control over them. So, in the definition of power, we have two keywords. At first, influence. Second, control. The power is the ability of one person to influence other and exercise control over them. The third word is that in this definition, we assume that power is an external action. We need some people to have power over them, to control over them, to have power and to influence them. Okay. Second is influence. Influence, the power to affect the course of an action. When we are talking about the influence at first is a type of power. What type of power? The type of power that its target is not people. It is about action. So influence is the power to affect the course of an action. The keyword is action. So we know that the subcategorization of power is influence. The third word is authority. Authority is the power vested in a position. It is very, very, very restricted point of power. Very restricted power in a position, in a specific position. It is authority. So their general concept is power. Power for actions, control over actions, it is called influence. And power for positions is called authority. Consequences of power on power holder. Someone who has power to control and influence and have some authority in specific positions to control and influence is called power holder. Power holder, after holding the power, has some changes. And we are talking about these changes, consequences of influences of power on the power holder. Sometimes in real life, they said to me that, to us and to me that, wow, you are not the same person, for example, 1 year before you were. I said, yes. Why? Because of power. Is it good or bad? Good or bad, it is about judgment. We are describing, and at the best scenario, we are using the explanation about the cause and effects of our description. So we are not judging people about having power, holding power, or not. We are describing the effects of power on the personality, on the character, on the feelings, on the thinking manners, thought styles, and more important than everything, on their actions. At first, we have positive effects of power on power holder. More action orientation. In orientation of action, people are divided to different categorizations. For example, process orientation, result orientation, outcome orientation, and sometimes action orientation.
Excuse me? Professor, I think you're muted. Is it just me? My computer?
In very bad manner, very, very bad manner. Okay. Followers' reaction to power, compliance, commitment, and resistance. At first, we should know that people who follow you, when some people follow you in every aspect of your life, as a leader, as a manager, as a father, as a community leader, as an Instagram public figure, everywhere people are following you, they are your followers. And it is not that you are acceptable in all aspects of your life, in all aspects of your leadership style or leadership components. It only means that you should have some impact on their life. So some people have the compliance position to you as the power holder. Some people has the commitment to the power holder, and some people are resistant. It is very, very ordinary and very logical categorization of the reaction of the followers to the power holder. In compliance, they think that yes, it is very good to follow you. You know more than us. You can guide us. And until the time, everything you say us, we have a good compliance to you and we follow you. We don't think about the things that you say. We accept it full complete. And it's a good position. You are responsible and you are accountable. We are not responsible and not accountable for our actions, feelings, and thinkings, thoughts. In the other hands, some people, but it's a very in a short period of time, compliance. After that, people will confront with the doubts in themselves and you about the situations and say goodbye to you. On the other hand, some people have good commitment about the power holder. It's a long term compliance. When it is long term, they have good commitment. They will bring your thought as the power holder, your lifestyle as a leader in their life, in their private life. They have a good commitment and don't go to any power holder, don't go to use any other leadership style and anything else. But the third reaction is resistance. Some people say, what are you talking about? Do you consider yourself as a god of thinking, as a god of leadership, as a god of power? No, I cannot accept you as a god of power, as a god of leadership. An ordinary people, yes, you know something better than me in some approaches of life. But finally, sorry, I cannot accept your lifestyle and thinking and guidance. And sometimes I'm oppositional to you. Not only I don't accept, I react in the uh, opposition direction to you. Okay? These are the followers' reaction to power, compliance, commitment, and resistance. And power and culture. One of the greatest things we always talk about is the communication and interaction between the power and culture. These are the major parts of our working with power in the organizations. We have high impact of culture and we have low impact of culture in two dimensions. One, power distance. Two, uncertainty avoidance. Delegation, use of teams, and empowerment. You see that uncertainty avoidance and power distance are high in delegation and low in empowerment. So these are the uh, interaction between power and culture in three aspects: delegation, use of teams, and empowerment. Distribution of power and culture. The more equal the power distribution in our organization, the higher the performance. If the people work with you think that, yes, you have a good distribution, you have a fair distribution of power in the organization, it is not about the hierarchy of, for example, relationship with the managers. It is the hierarchy of competencies. It is based upon your merits, your goodnesses, your skills, your competencies, and your confidences. If the people work with you think that, yes, in this organization, distribution is power is so fair, and we can consider of this fair distribution as a good basis for our growth, for our development, for our going up in our organization, yes, we can have some confidence to the management, to the power holding in this organization, and there are a lot of hopes to grow in the organization. Because of that, the more equal the power distribution in organization, the higher the performance. We want to have high performances in our organization, good quality, good effectiveness, high effectiveness, having good standards for our job and other parts. It is one of the culture, it is called organizational culture. Organizational culture is that of rituals, values, and standards in an organization that determines the system for growing a person, a simple worker in that organization. It is the organizational culture, the values, the standards that have some powerful impact on the employees, on the management, on the everybody who works in an organization, works under the control and dominance of organizational culture. Culture strongly impacts the perception and use of power. It is very important. In every aspect of power, the culture that power we use, for example, if you use the power in your society, if you use your power in your family, if you use your power in your organization, corporation, or any other location or other position that you use your power, it is very important that how people perceive your power position. It is very important. It is not called power, it is called perceived power, the perception of power and the usage and the method for use it. It is culture strongly impacts. Why? Because your perception is based upon your judgment, and your judgment and based upon your values and standards. And your values and standards is based upon your culture. This is the very formal, very, very formal and basic definition of culture. A set of values, standards, rituals, methods that impact everyday life of a group, of a nation, an organization, and other parts of more than one person. In high power distance culture, expectation of power sharing are low. Look at this picture. When power distance is high, empowerment is low. What's the meaning of empowerment or delegation, use of team? When power distance is high or uncertainty avoidance is high, We want to work in a very, very certain situation, very certain organization. We don't have any good uncertainty acceptance or ambiguity tolerance or uncertainty tolerance. We don't have any good uncertainty tolerance. In that position, and also when power distance, the distance between the power holders and other people are very high, yes, they think that it is not so important, it is not so possible to share their power with us. We are always the subordinate. You see here in this sentence that in high power distance culture, expectation of power sharing are low. When expectation of power sharing become low, after that, you will have some sort of dominancy, some sort of everything is only for power holders, and we cannot grow in this organization to the top managerial, for example, level, management level. Okay, why? Because you think that, wow, power distance is a culture, and a high power distance, the distance between the top level management and the lower level employees is very high. It is not good for creating a sense of belongingness to the organization. Okay. Individual sources of power. What are the individual sources of power? Individual sources of power are legitimate power, reward power, coercive power, expert power, and referent power. In every aspect of your life, especially in your organizational life, in your organizational situations, you have 5 sources of power as an individual: legitimate power, reward power, coercive power, expert power, and referent power. Okay. You can see in resistance, compliance, and commitment. Do you remember that we have 3 reactions to power: compliance, commitment, and resistance? You can see the different potential reactions to individual sources of power. For example, in referent power, you see a good commitment. But in legitimacy power, you see a good compliance. And in coercion power, you see a high level of resistance. For reward and expertise power, it's different. So legitimate power, reward power, coercive power, expert power, and referent power. Okay. Influence tactics. What are the influence tactics for power? Rational persuasion, personal appeal, inspirational appeal, exchange, consultation, coalition building, ingratiation, legitimate tactics, and pressure. These are the main 9 influence tactics that power holders can use to create their power and to do their power for influence and control other people's. As we had a definition of power in this position, that power was the one person ability to have influence on other people's, to influence other people's, and to have some control over them. Rational persuasion, you know, it is based upon rationality. Inspirational appeal. Rational persuasion is not about the cognition. It is about the combination between cognition and emotion. When you are talking rational, it is something between calculation and philosophy. It is not strict only logic. Rational is something more than logic. Logic is a subcategorization of rationality. And are also some philosophical mind. It is about persuasion. When you persuade other people, they want themselves, they are satisfied to do some things, not with your pressure, not with your supervision. They want to do it something with their own satisfaction, with their own desire. So rational persuasion, it is one of the basic, most important tactics to influence other people's. Inspirational appeal. It is very important. When you're a power holder, it is something like coaching, like mentorship, like directorship, to be a director. You should some have inspirational aspects of your personality. You should some have motivational aspects of your personality. If you cannot inspire other people to do the things you want for yourself or your organization, they cannot obey you. They don't have enough source of energy for doing their actions they want. Other parts is consultation. Other things is consultation about the influence tactics. What is the difference between consultation and counseling? In counseling, you have some analysis about the problem and you offer your client about these causes of the actions they have, of the problems they have. But in consultation, at first consultation is very specific and area limited. It's based upon the area you are giving the consultation. For example, occupational consultation, educational consultation, political consultation, economic consultation. It is not counseling. Counseling, in contrast with consultation, consultation has some straight orders, some straight comments after ending the consultation. You should know what is specific jobs, what is specific action, what is specific emotions, what is specific thoughts you should experience in yourself or your in, for example, environment. If it is family environment, it is job environment, it is social environment. So consultation is one of the good tactics for influence other people's. Some people with different titles have the position of consultation. For example, um, psychotherapy, counselors, coaches, mentors, teachers, sometimes leaders, not specific. The specific title is not consultation, but sometimes they have a good position for consultation. And in ingratiation and personal appeal. Personal appeal is very important. This is the charismatic and personality based part of influence tactics. All power holders, when it is called power holder, that you can influence other people. So you should know about the tactics of influence other people and have control over them. It is your personal appeal, it is your charismatic character, which is very important to have some influence on other people's and to share your experience, to share your personality features, to share your charismatic uh, traits of your character, and to share your previous wrong experience in a right way to experience, to give them. Uh, we can able them, we can create an ability in them to have some lessons from your previous wrong behaviors, wrong feelings, and wrong actions and wrong thinkings. So personal appeal for the followers is very important. If you want to follow somebody, you can see it in Instagram, for example. A lot of high public figures in Instagram, they have some characteristic of personality, some character traits. It is personal in different aspects, as in psychology, in lectures, in, for example, fashions, in economy, in counseling, in singers, in artists, and other parts. They have some personal appeal in their area that they want to be a high followers in Instagram, for example. Exchange. Other tactic that we can use to influence other people's, that we should have some exchange with them. Some part of this exchange can be financial. Some part is emotional. Some part is very physical, very uh, materialistic and substantial. When we are talking about exchange, we are talking about the giving and taking. What other people will gain after have some after under being under our influence? This is very important. What other people should take and give in these influential relationship with a power holder. And legitimate tactics, we talk about it, and pressure. One of the basic words associated with the word power in the mind is pressure. We have a psychological test. It is called word association test. Ewing word association test. It's based on this assumption that when you hear a word, what is the first and fastest word associated in your mind? Different words, and it is very, very good test for mining your unconsciousness, go deep to your unconsciousness. It is very important. Okay, it's pressure. One of the first words that you can find, you can associate in everybody mind is pressure. Pressure is very, very popular in association with power. Why? Power is the ability to control and influence other peoples. It is the basic definitions we offer at the basic part of our organization. Sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So we were talking about the pressure. When we are talking about the pressure, we said that the first word associated with the word power in the mind, at least based upon the word association test, it is pressure. Pressure is the tools of power, tools of have some power, some control, some influence over other people. So the pressure and using pressure, not in a right or wrong way, because there's no wrong way for using pressure. It's a fair and unfair way to using pressure. It is related to the object that you are using pressure to control it. Carrier stages and power. We have two dimensions: carrier progression, early to late, and sources, power, and challenges. It is from basic part to the forward and next steps. We have three parts: personal credibility, relationships, expertise, and gaining power. Legitimate power, appropriate use of power, and all power sources letting go gracefully. So we are talking about the career progression and sources, power, and challenges. You see that when we have more and late career progression, we can use all power sources and letting go gracefully. In the mid-level between the career progression and sources, power, and challenges, we see legitimate power and appropriate use of power. And finally, at the first part and the starting point of career progression, in the early career progression and early sources, power, and challenges, we see personal credit. It is related to yourself, related to your personality, your character, and relationship and expertise and gaining power. Organizational team sources of power. We talk about the individual sources of power, and now we are talking about the organizational or team sources of power. Coping with uncertainty, centrality, dependency, and substitutability. These are the organizational or team sources of power. So you can see four sources of power as the sources of power for an organization or for a team. At first, it is coping with uncertainty. Honestly speaking, if you want to have power in all aspects of your life, you should know the weakness point of your power. What does it mean? It means that as the human beings, we all have some weakness pointed that weakening our power points, that weakening our powers, that weakening our powerful mindset, because everything is about mindset. Everything is about how do you think and what your attitude is about. How do you think and what is your interpretation about the external or internal matters, issues of your life. And because you are living in a live, real world, we have some predictions about the future. And after that, and based upon those predictions, we have some preventions about the future, especially about the hazardous, about the dangerous, about the bad events in our future life. At first, prediction. Second, prevention. That's good. Why not? But it is not certain. It is only prediction and prevention. When you are talking about the certainty, you are talking about the absolute parts of life. Okay? So, uncertainty acceptance, uncertainty tolerance, ambiguity tolerance, is the major part, is the main core of every human power, every human power, every human source or type of power. And also, as a psychologist, I want to say to you that ambiguity tolerance, uncertainty tolerance, coping with uncertainty is the main core of happiness, because many people destroy their happiness by their unacceptance, by their uh, miscoping, doesn't have any good and effective coping with uncertainty. Why people are always anxious about their future? Why people in different levels of economic security, economic independency, and what economic, for example, having a lot of money, a good bank saving, economic prosperity, but they don't have any secure feeling about the future. Why? Because they think that they cannot cope with the uncertainties on future. And the nature of future is uncertainty. Basically, when it is called future, that it is uncertain. If it is not uncertain, it is not future. It is a good picture of the next steps of life. When you're talking about the future, you are thinking and talking about the timeline: past time, present time, future time. Images from the past time and imagination for the future time, and experience of the present time. So in this timeline, we have three different perception. Because of that, we call it perceived future, not future. It is not important about the future. It is important about the perceived future. Perceived future can be an anxiety-based perception. Perceived future can be an unserenity-based future. Perceived future can be a prosperity-based future. It's your perception about the future, which can have a severe and serious impact on your present life, destroy it or build your present time. For example, you know that one of the major and main emotions about the future is hope. Hope is a type of emotion, not about thinking. Yes, the basic parts of hoping is about your thinking. But finally, you experience in your heart. You experience your hope in your heart. It's a type of emotion, a type of feeling. And it is a type of feeling about future, not about the present. Present is about the satisfaction or serenity or anxiety. These are the present moment feelings. But when you are thinking, for example, about the past life, your past time of your early years of your life, or your past, totally about your past. For example, frustration is a feeling about the past, or fulfillment, maybe it's a feeling about the past. You fulfill, or now you have some frustration about the past life. So these are the different type of emotions that you will experience in your life as the future managers, as the future leaders. At first, as an individual source of power in yourself, you should create some types and some sources of coping with uncertainty and switch it and shift it and change it as a source for your organizational source of power. Why? Because a person, a leader, a manager with a high, powerful, stable, progressive mindset can change every type of organization with every type of employees or coworkers. It is not important. If they are good employees, good workers, yes, changing the organization is a little, not much, a little easier. If they are not good and effective, for example, co-workers or employees, it may be, again, a little harder. It is about it to be easy or to be hard. Not it is impossible or possible. It is possible, absolutely. When you as a leader, when you as a manager have a corrective, progressive, stable, and powerful mindset, powerful attitude. About the uncertainty at first, if you cannot cope with your uncertainty, you cannot be happy. Never, you cannot be happy. The second source of organization is centrality. Okay. How much can we find centrality in the managerial parts of an organization? How central is the source of power in an organization? Is it based upon the one specific manager, one specific leader, or not? It is about centrality. Centrality has two parts. One part, we have one person as a general manager, as a CEO, as an owner, maybe sometimes in an organization, in a team, that he is the central part of an organization, the central source of power in an organization. So everything is related to him or her. If she or he is a good, wise leader, yes, they can handle the organization, they can manage the organization so effective. So they are the source of power in their organization, in their team, in their group, in their society, in their family even. Sometimes we don't have any specific single one person. We have a board of centrality. For example, board of directors. Yes. When it is board, at one aspect, it is very good because we have several thinking, several attitudes about one specific determined, predetermined object for talking and discussing and having a good discussion, making a good discussion based upon the common sense in the board also. But some negative points of having this board of managers, this board of directors at the central part of an organization is that sometimes making decision is very slow. Sometimes we need a rapid decision about the future. So the degree of centrality in an organization can be a source of power. If I am the center of the organization, I have the high power in my organization to impact also negative, sometimes positive impact on my organization destiny. Why? Because I think on my own way. And dependency. Dependency is something different with corporation, with cooperation, with other organizations, with other people. In these modern times of organizing organization, in these modern times of having power for managing their organizations, dependency is not so good because it will make the organization isolated. It is something different with cooperation. When you have as an organization, when you have cooperative behavior, cooperative actions with other organization, yes, it has the synergic effect, not energetic effect. It has the synergic effect on your organization and also on your corporate organization. But if you are single and alone as an organization, a single organization, alone, an isolated organization, it cannot be the source of power. And substitutability, it is all of, as you see, all the phrase and all the words here are indicating the nature of flexibility in an organization. More flexibility, more power in organization. Okay, I have 15 minutes of break, and after 15 minutes, we will be here. Please, if you want to be a present at the session and have a present at your attendance list, your camera should be on. Except of that, you will be absent in the final attendance list for your university. After 15 minutes, I will be here again. Hello again, and we are coming back, continue our session in the topic of power, the general course of leadership for program of bachelor degree. Source of power for top executives. In the previous PowerPoint slides, we discussed about the source of power, individual source of power, organizational source of power, and now we are discussing about source of power for top executives, top managers, top executive managers. Legitimate power and position, distribution of sources, control of decision criteria, centrality in organizational structure, and access. These are the 5 sources of power for top executives. First, legitimate power and position. The legitimacy and the power position that the organization gives to its top executive managers, top executives, it is the first and most legitimate source of power for them. Why? Because it is formal and it is legal in an organization that top executives should have a good legitimate power and position. Second, distribution of resources. When you are a top executive in an organization, ordinarily you have a good distribution of resources in different parts and different levels of organization. So you can have some usage of these distribution of resources in different parts of your organization, and it can induce for yourself an informal source of power for you as a top executive. And third, control of decision criteria. When we are thinking about the executive people, managers, top executive people in an organization, in a team, in departments, even in society, the first word about the executive is manager, is decision and action. These are the basic parts of executive people. They have a good decision-making ability and have a good decision-making power, and they have an on-time and effective action. Why? Because they are executive people. Centrality in organizational structure. More centrality in an organizational structure, more power for top executive. Why? Because it is more clear for them to know about their responsibility, about their duties, about their actions, and about the accountability and responsibility, again, giving some responses, giving some accounts to other people around them in their organization. They are not the top manager, they are the top executive. As you, they should be accountable for their actions, for their decisions. Because of that, more centrality in an organization will create an atmosphere of clearance, an atmosphere of clarification in an organization for top executive. And finally, access. Access is something parallel to distribution of resources. Access is when you are an executive top manager in an organization, you have a good access to different other people's, other sources of organizations. And this access is one of your power source, one of the sources of your power in an organization as an executive top manager. The final part, which is very important for us to think about and to discuss about it, is power abuse and corruption. In different levels of holding power in organizations, in groups, in society, political power, especially economic power, especially in political power and economic power, we have corruption and abuse. For example, In the Me Too movement, you saw that a lot of females said that yes, they have been abused by the, for example, cinema power holders. Why? Because of the power holder and power situation. So, on the other hand, for example, in political powers, you see a lot of economic corruptions. Abuse and corruption are not in the nature of power usage, but they are in the nature of side effects of power. For example, seduction and seductive behavior, not even sexual seductive behavior in all aspects of your life. When you want to persuade other people to follow you or have control over them when you are not legitimate, when you are not competent, when you are not eligible for doing it. Or you are legitimate and eligible and competent for having power, but that things that you want to do is corruption. It is out of your authority. It is abuse of your power situation. Because of that, from the ancient writing about the power, from the Plato before Christ writings, just now in philosophical writings, in psychological writings, we have a course in psychology of power, psychology of power. Also now in management and leadership and sociology, in all aspects of human sciences, one part in power, benefits of power, costs of power, sources of power, and power holder, and features and impacts, and other. And finally, we have a discussion, deep discussion about the abuse of power and power corruption. At first, we should distinguish between these words. Why? Because this is academy, and you should have an operational definition of everything you want to work with. At first, it is abuse, and secondly, we will have definition about corruption. Abuse is taking advantage of one's power for personal gain, unethical, but not always illegal. Note that in abuse, in power abuse, a lot of power abuse are unethical, but they are not illegal. They are legal. And they said, what an illegal things I have done. They say, nothing. It is not illegal, but it is unethical. It is not about your organization. It is about your personal gain. So this is called abuse. But corruption is abusing one's power to benefit oneself or another person, both illegal and unethical. Abuse is unethical, but not illegal. It is legal. Can be legal. If it is both unethical and illegal, it is called corruption, power corruption. Causes of power corruption. At first, it is related to the characteristic and personality traits of a leader. The first causes, the first sources of power corruption, it is related to the back history, personal life history of the power holder. Sometimes he or she is called leader in an organization or a movement, a society, and other parts of life that we need a manager or a leader as a power holder, sometimes as a charismatic power holder. So the first source and the first cause of power corruption is related to the leaders or power holders' characteristic or personality traits. Inflated view of self. Dominant people, narcissistic personality people, histrionic people, very, very, very sense of importance, excessive sense of importance, people with excessive sense of importance, inflated view of self and God. It is the basic source of power corruption in people. Inflated ego, as Freud says, inflated ego. Rigid and inflexible. The second part, the second characteristic of people with power corruption is rigid and inflexible. Very, very hard. They are not resilient. They are rigid. They are inflexible. So inflexibility and rigid become one of the causes of power corruption. Sense of entitlement. Yes, you see that we are talking about the inflated ego. All are different aspects of inflated ego with a huge character personality and a great self-image over other people to control and influence them. Yes, it is the source of power corruption. Yes. Willingness to exploit others. As a country, as an organization, as a leader, as a manager, as a parent, as a close friend, when you have some willingness to exploit others, the nature, the basic concepts hidden in the meaning of exploitation is corruption. Exploitation ends to corruption. Its meaning, its goals is corruption. Ethically, it is corruption. So when you have more willingness to exploit others, you are more on the position to have some power corruption. Lack of empathy. We talked about it, that one of the bad effects, negative effects of the power on the power holder is lower empathy or lack of empathy. When you don't have any empathy about other people, for other people, you cannot call it corruption. You say, yes, it's my right. He or she is satisfied. It's not related to me. You don't have any empathy. You cannot put yourself in the position of other people. It is not related to me. Your problem is my problem, but total is your problem. Lack of empathy. Vicious and restless. Restless is very hard. It is not humanistic feature. When you are restless, yes, it is something after empathy. Lack of empathy at the highest levels will go to the vicious character of personality. Already concerned with power. People thinking and thinking and thinking and have a lot of preoccupation and rumination, mind rumination with the issue of power, with the power issues, every type of power issues. Having power, maintaining power, increasing power, losing power, power. When you have a preoccupation, when you have a rumination, a mind rumination, mental rumination about the power, overly concerned, it can be ended to power corruption. And ingratiating with supervisor. Okay. When you want to have some good aspects, to have some good faces for your supervisors, for other people, for your people that monitor you, yes, you will have some power corruption to present a good face, a good reputation from yourself in the face of others. It is very interesting that all causes of corruption is not related to the power holder. All causes of corruption is not related to power holder. Some part is related to follower characteristic, leaders characteristics, and followers like at first fear. Fearful follower characteristic, fearful followers are a good position for someone with holding power, for a power holder to have some corruption, to have some abuse, because you are fearful. You cannot have any protest against me. Silence. You see that when there is no protest, there is no battle against something. When you are always silent, yes, after that we cannot see any stopping power corruption. Agreement. A lot of people in different aspects of life, in different views of life, have some good agreement with power corruption. Why? Sometimes they have some shareholders in their corruption. They have some good benefits from the power corruption. Sometimes they are underdog person. They have some um, minority or um, submissive feeling about the power. They think that yes, everything you say, I have a good compliance. And again, compliance at the following of agreement, and inaction. I'm passive or inaction. I don't have any good protest and any good reaction to the corruption, and flattery. That flattery is the same thing there. In all aspects of these features, of these characteristics of followers, you see that a weak personality, a passive personality, he or she is not active. If you are not an active person in your life, an assertive person in your life, you allow other people to corrupt from their power, to abuse you, to destroy your outcomes of your life and other parts that you have some good benefits. And it will be so high cost, in spiritually high cost, socially high cost, physically high cost, emotionally high cost. It will destroy everything in your life when you don't have any good assertive character for yourself and for your society, not aggressive, assertive character. Cause of profile at the third part, it is organizational factors. Organizational culture in many countries, you are stupid when you cannot have some good corruption in your power positions. Why? Because an ill economy, a sad economy, a rough economy that see everything that gaining money and money and money. There is no fair attitude to economy in those countries. In those countries, organizational culture is based upon corruption and abuse. More abusive you are, more smart you are in those organizations. So it is regular that power corruption is admired and say, yes, the greatest benefit of power holding is power corruption. When an organizational culture is like this, you see that a lot of people are trying hard to have more power corruption, not to reduce it, to increase it. And hiring practices, one of other things that organizational factors can including power corruption in their hiring processes and sometimes in firing processes. When you don't have any good, fair, systematic, and evidence-based and meritocratic base for your hiring process in your organization, yes, the someone who is the power holder for hiring process can have a good sense of power corruption in his or her position. And short-term orientation. Short-term orientation is about when you think only one step in front of you. You don't have any good strategic thinking and future-oriented thinking. So honestly, in that position, you are not a leader. If you cannot have, I have said it a lot of times, many times, that if you don't think about the future and you cannot have a good strategic planning, a strategic thinking, a strategic analysis about the future, you are not a leader. At the best scenario, you are a manager. Okay? A short-term orientation, yes, I'm here only for 1 year, for 6 months, or 1 month, something. I should have only my own gains. Even by the price of corruption, sometimes yes. And centralized structure. We talk about the centralization and also delegation and empowerment. We were talking about the empowerment in the next slides. But centralized structure, when I am the king of my organization, is it everything at my hand? Yes. Can I have some corruption from my power situation? Again, yes. With no regulatory units, regulatory directors supervising and monitoring my activities, my power holding position, there's no supervision. Okay, when there's no supervision, corruption is not ethical, not legal, but it is ordinary. Right? There is no supervisory for something. Okay, can go out of the right time, right way, right person, and right place. It will set some uh, deviant behaviors, deviant thinking or emotions in the leaders, in the managers, in the chefs. So centralized structure can be one of the organizational factors that causes power corruption. The corruption cycles you see here, causes of corruption, consequences of corruption, and corruption processes. What are the causes? We talk about the leader characters and organizational character. And organizational factors will end to poor decisions, coercion, devaluation of others, ethical and legal violations, and also leader character will end to compliance, distance from others, inflated view of self, flattery and dependence, and finally, between the consequences of organizational factors and leader characters and sometimes follower characters, we have the process of corruption cycle. It's a combination. We cannot say just that specific feature, that specific character of leader will end to corruption, higher rate of corruption in an organization, or that specific feature and factor, organizational factor, can create a lot of corruption in our organization. It's a combination of different factors and multi-factor impact. What can we do? What are the solutions to corruption? It is the great and more important question that we should ask each other to solve the problem of corruption in our organization, in our society, in our world. Clear message and consistency, which is very important. When everything is clear, when everything is certain, but everything is very, very out of ambiguity, yes, we cannot corrupt. Clear messages with no misunderstanding, and we know misconceptualization. Accountability. You are accountable for your actions in every aspect of your life, in every power position you are experiencing in your life. You are accountable. When you are accountable and you feel accountability, and you should be responsible to other people for your actions. Why? Because you are a power holder. Why? Because we have hold the power to you. We have give power to you for acting good, acting efficient in your life. Because of that, we say accountability is one of the solutions to corruption. You cannot say that it is not, sorry, it is not related to me. You are accountable. Everything is related to you in the area of your responsibility, in the area of your power. Reducing uncertainty at the same page of clear messages. Reducing uncertainty. We talk about the impact and effect of uncertainty tolerance, ambiguity tolerance in our happiness level, in our happiness area. We talk about it. So as possible as you can reduce your uncertainty in your organization, the corruption rate will reduce. Why? Because it's very clear. When you are a corrupted people, when you want to have some corruption in your organization, when you want to abuse your power holding and your power situation, discussion about the ambiguous or uncertain issues is very important. Yes, it is not corruption because of it is not certain that what should I do. So I do it on my own way. Other people says no, it is corruption. I said no. Maybe you can consider it as unethical. It's abuse, but it is not illegal. It is not corruption. Training for leaders and followers. Such this session, we can talk and we can train followers and leaders, their rights, their misunderstanding about the corruption, their good understanding and good perception and correct perception, right perception of power and corruption, and also about the followers. Protecting employees. We talk about the followers. When we are talking about employees, we are talking about followers in an organization because they follow their leader, they follow their managers. When we protect them, that yes, you have the right to talk about the corruption. You have the right to talk about yourself. It is not necessary to be silent. It is not necessary to be passive. A good employee is not a passive employee, a silent employee, a full compliant employee. This is not a good employee. We want sharp, smart, and efficient employee for our organization as a family. You are not my employees. You are my family members because our organization is our family. With this conceptualization for the employees, for the co-workers, for the team members, a high rate of belongingness to the organization, they are active because this is their family. This is their society. And even they are not good in the organization, say goodbye to them. Okay, why not? So protecting employees, to reducing the fear, and to increasing the confidence, to increasing the assertiveness, to increasing the commitment to the organization is one of the basic barrier in front of corruption. And finally, open communication. Your employees, your co-workers, your family members, your team members should be open, should have an open communication with you. They should feel free to talk to you. Why? Because yes, you are the power holder, you are the leader, you are the manager of your organization. But when you don't have any close relationship with your employee, a lot of news and sometimes hazardous news, dangerous news, bad news will be missed because you are far from your basic parts of your organization. So open communication is a very good method to let somebody know about the corruption in his or her organization. Other people have a good communication, have an open communication with him or her. Okay? Leader involvement in day-to-day activities. You should be present in your organization. They should know that, yes, I am here. The absent leader is not a leader. It's a statue of a leader, the symbolic shadow of a leader. He or she is not a leader. A good leader is a present leader. Reducing follower dependence on leader. Yes, you are my follower, but you are not dependent to me. Only following in the basic and general concepts of following and leadership. Other parts related to you, you are independent. You should be independent because you should be accountable for your actions. And empowerment is giving some parts of power, something like delegation, to other people. For example, we want our employee, our co-workers be more powerful in their job situations, in their accountability. An objective performance measure, it is objective that we can have some good measurement about the measuring of the outcomes, and we can find some corruptive and some abusive result that these results are not doesn't have any accordance to the input to our organization, very too good to be true, or sometimes it is not too good. Yes. Involvement of outsiders, yes, we have some extra, we need some external supervisor to give us some supervision over our organization and changing the organizational culture from power-based organization to friendship-based, to management, to leadership. We are your leaders. We are not your boss. If we are bosses, we will lose our power. Why? Because boss is not a friend, but your leader is your friend. He or she knows something more than you and can lead you to and the organization to have a good cumulative and additional extra added value for organization. But when he or she is so far, it can increase the corruption. We talk about empowerment. What are the leadership factors of empowerment? Create a positive emotional atmosphere. This is like parenting training. Set high performance standards. This is our level of standards, performance standard. Encourage initiative and responsibility. It is very important. We can empower you when you use your initiation and your responsibility to do the new things. You seek novelty in our organization because it is not our organization, it is your organization. We are working together for a company. Reward openly and personally. It is very important, very important. Every person should know that he or she will give some rewards and not a necessary punishment, some rewards personally. I'm very open. It is not hidden. And practice equity and collaboration. It is very important that everybody in our organization think that I have the opportunity to grow in this organization. It is equity, no discrimination, sexual discrimination, gender discrimination, race discrimination, religion discrimination, no discrimination. We are an equity in our organization and specific and the same position, equal position for growing. Express appropriate confidence in subordinate. It is very important that your subordinate think that, yes, our boss, our manager, our leader believe in us. He or she believes in us and say, yes, you can do it. I hear somewhere that I can is more important than IQ. I can is more important than IQ, and honestly in organization, even in your personal development, it is very important. It is not related to IQ. IQ is the scale for your academic growth, academic development, for your grades. EQ, yes. And more than everything, it is I can. I can is the combination of EQ and IQ. Okay? So express appropriate confidence in subordinates is very important. What are the organizational factors of empowerment? Decentralized structure at first. It is not centralized on only one person. Centralized, yes. One person or a board of directors are responsible. For example, for the shareholders, for the stockholders and other people, yes. But it is not centralized in decision making. When it is centralized, it is not organization, it's a tribe. We have a chief, and we have some Indians. It's a tribe. It is very centralized. It doesn't work for an organization. It is very good for a tribe. Not too bad. Why not? But for an organization and for empowerment in an organization, when you think that there is a long distance between me and that position, I don't have any motivation for going forward, for self-improvement. So you as my leader, you as my manager want to empower me to growth in the organization. My empowerment is organizational empowerment. Because of that, decentralized is very important. Select and train leaders appropriately. It is one of the pre-assumptions that in an organization, we should have some leaders training. And it is assumption that leaders have been trained for their position as the leader. Select and train employees appropriately. Select and train is very important. And in my personal experience, I think selection is more important than training. Because on a good selection, you can have a good, efficient training. But on an appropriate selection, not bad selection, it is appropriate or disappropriate, inappropriate. For an appropriate selection, you can have a good training. But for an inappropriate selection, well, it is very hard to have an effective training, to have a good training, because he or she is not talented for the things you want to be train them. It is not their fault. It is their feature. They can be efficient and good in other areas of life, in other areas of talent, in other areas of development. But for this specific area of development, this specific area of talent, they are not talented. More activity, more pressure you have to develop in the areas yet your talent is not so good, more frustration you will feel. Why? Because you give but not taking. You give but not taking. You cannot reach your admirable and desirable outcomes. Why? Because you are not good potential for achievement your desirable outcomes. In other areas, yes, you are talented. Why not? So because of that, in selecting and training employees appropriately, I think selection is more important than training. Remove bureaucratic constraints. Bureaucratic constraints will have a large pressure on the growth area. I think, wow, so hard it is to grow in this organization, just bureaucratic constraints, paper and paper and order and order. Modern companies like Tesla, like Apple, like Amazon, have reduced the bureaucratic restriction and constraints very, very low. Why? Because they want to have a good flexibility to work and to have connection with their employees and to empower them. Our employee empowerment is our organizational empowerment. Why? Because our employees, our co-workers, our staffs, our managers are the major investment, major organizational capital, major. Without them, we don't have any organization. We have some only instruments. Yes, we have some robots sometimes. Reward empowering behaviors. For stopping the inefficient behaviors, you need punishment. But for creating and for maintaining and increasing the possibility of recurrency of positive behaviors, only reward can be the only answer, not punishment. You cannot create a positive behavior with punishment. Sometimes you can stop negative behavior with punishment, yes. But creating and developing and maintaining the positive behaviors in organization, in family, even in society, in a larger scale in society, only reward can be good, only reward can be helpful. Except of that, we destroy everything. And create fair and open general organization policies. If the employee think that the organization policies are very fair for everybody to grow in the organization, yes, why not? But if they think it is not fair, it is very closed, very restricted, they have it, for example, a lot of bureaucratic constraint. No, it is not about the organizational growth, it is about the relationship, and out of the organizational relationship and interpersonal, non-organizational relationship, your growth is related to that relationship. It is corruption, it is abuse. We are talking about empowerment. We are talking about sharing our power as the leaders or power holders with our subordinates to empower them to be at the same level we are, and sometimes more than us. Yes. Every wise teacher wants that his or her students will become better than him or herself. Why? Because I'm teacher and you should be better than me. Except of that, I'm not an open and fair teacher. Okay? And what are the leadership challenge? Understand the reason for high salaries, market competition, high risk jobs, especially high risk jobs. Attracting talent. One of the greatest challenges for leaders are attracting talented people, finding and attracting them and maintaining them, and have a good salary for them, and create motivation for the talented people. And fairness is a highly subjective, very, very highly subjective. We have some definitions, some problems in defining the some concepts like, for example, fairness. Organizations in crisis need to attract talented. Yes, it is the part of crisis management, and high salary differentiates affect moral. Okay, and we have a model like similar. It is open book management and share information and power, and train employee to understand financial information, and sabbatical to refresh, and high performance. Again, leaders in action, it is the source of power, and a lot of samples that we can find here. For example, for full source of power, legitimate title, considerable expertise, bullying, and performance, reward and punishment, and it's over. So you can have 15 minutes for your weekly quiz. Please don't postpone your weekly quiz, your assignments. Tonight, Wednesday night, is the due date for your initial analytical post, for your first post, with 14 points from out of 30. And the due date for your peers reviews and peers reply is Sunday night, 23:55. Don't postpone them. These reduction in grades in points can seriously harm your final grade. You should be anxious about, you should be worrying about the final grades, because when you fail in these little points, and after that, and the cumulative effect for the final grades, it is not good. It can harm and damage seriously your final grade. Is there any question, Joy?
Yes, I was gonna ask about the midterm next week.
Okay. Have a good
Um,
time, and again, happy Veterans Day.